Hello, Lyttleton Street United Methodist Church. This is your Health and Wellness Committee with your message for the week. Well, we're here. We're where we all feared we would be right now. We're in the second, third COVID surge, and it's bad. It's really bad. Our hospitals are being overwhelmed. Our healthcare workers are exhausted. You hear conversations from the respiratory therapists. Well, how many high flows do we have left? None. Well, who can we get off of one? So we are here. I want to share a text I got last night from a close friend who's a hospitalist who I really respect. He says, if I code and lose another patient today, is it that way at Richland right now? Is everybody dying? This seems different. Maybe it's because of the sheer numbers. Nursing is starting to cry and break down. I almost cried a minute ago. And that is where we are now. Healthcare workers, nurses, doctors, techs, they're exhausted. They've all been working overtime and short-staffed and physically and emotionally exhausted. So our one hope are the COVID vaccines. And we have 2 available now. I think the biggest frustration has been all of the negative press on some of the news channels, not all, and on social media that really is not fact-based. And so I think it's really important that you understand the facts behind the vaccines. I'm going to talk mostly about the Pfizer vaccine because that's what we have the most of here. So if you were to get your vaccine tomorrow, you would most likely get a Pfizer vaccine. I don't think we have any Moderna in this area at this point. So there are 2 vaccines that have been approved for emergency use authorization. This doesn't mean that they've been approved because they haven't been studied for long enough, and that's really the big thing. They were pushed out so quickly, we don't have long-term studies, but we have really good data on the short-term effects. The Pfizer vaccine has been studied in over 44,000 people. The cool thing is that they studied it in people of all races, ages, and ethnicities. So 4.5% were Asian, 10% were blacks, 26% were Hispanics, and 1% Native Americans, and the rest were Caucasians. They studied it in real people with real diseases. So they studied it in people with hypertension, with asthma, with heart disease, with autoimmune disease. They studied it in real people to see what the real effects were. This is an mRNA vaccine. There's a fatty lipid layer around some messenger RNA that sits in a bath of salts and sugars. The fatty lipid layer is made of 4 fats, one of which is polyethylene glycol, which you might have taken in the past if you were ever constipated. That goes by the name of Miralax. And this is the most likely culprit for the anaphylaxis that you've heard of. And really, at this point still, the anaphylaxis rates are very, very low. I think there were 5 recorded for the Pfizer vaccine at this point. All of the Pfizer recipients who had anaphylaxis to date have had allergic reactions to other things. So it is recommended that if you've had an allergic reaction to a vaccine, that you do not get the Pfizer or Moderna vaccines. You need to wait for the AstraZeneca and Oxford vaccine, which we're hoping will be approved later on in the spring. If you have had an anaphylactic reaction to a food, you will have to sit and wait 30 minutes after you get your vaccine, as opposed to everyone else who has to sit and wait for 15 minutes to be observed after the vaccine. So back to the actual vaccine. The sugars and the salts act as a buffer, and literally these sugars and salts are sodium chloride, so table salt, sugar, a bunch of stuff that you find in your pantry or in your medicine cabinet. There's some phosphate salts, very benign. There is no mercury, no thimerosal, and thimerosal is kind of got a bad name by that corrupt doctor from England who made up data showing that it caused autism. That's been proven over and over again to be false. but thimerosal still carries a bad rap. There's none of that in there. There's no egg proteins. There's no other preservatives. You have your fatty bilayer, your sugars, your salts, and your mRNA. Now, I have a distinct advantage over all of you because homeschooling our youngest kids, I've just finished cell biology with Mary Catherine. But if you can reach back into your memories and remember the ribosomes, those little bumps, and they take the mRNA, and the mRNA goes through the ribosomes and it makes a protein. And then that protein is put on the outside of the cell. And if you remember the pictures of the coronavirus, they all have these little bumps on them. Well, that's the spike protein. So this mRNA causes your body to make a spike protein and then present it on the outside of the cell, and your body recognizes that this is foreign, that this is not something it knows, and so it naturally attacks it. It makes antibodies and it makes memory cells to remember it in the future, so that even after your antibodies have waned, if you see this again, see the spike protein, your body will remember that this was something that it fought in the past, and it can make a faster response to it. The other good thing is the mRNA, once it goes through the ribosomes and it makes the protein, it quickly degrades. So it goes away, gets recycled, doesn't go into the nucleus, it just goes away. So who can get the vaccine right now? Right now it's just healthcare workers, but we're quickly moving to nursing homes, prisons, and then essential workers. So I'm hoping we can get our teachers, our frontline essential workers vaccinated fairly shortly. Who cannot get the vaccine? You cannot get the vaccine if you've had COVID within 90 days. And the reason they're holding off on that right now is because you're very unlikely to get COVID if you've had it within the last 90 days. You can also not get it if you've had the monoclonal antibodies. You wouldn't make the same immune response. So you cannot get the vaccine for 90 days after you've had the monoclonal antibodies. Both the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines are a series of 2 shots. The Moderna vaccine is 28 days apart. The Pfizer vaccine is 21 days apart, and they have very similar side effects and risks. I've got some slides to show you. Some of you older members of our congregation might think that our younger people are weaker and whinier with this data, but in fact, younger people have stronger immune responses. Our immune systems are stronger, and we make a stronger immune response to the COVID vaccine. So if you look at these top 2, this is the age 16 to 55 age group, and if you look at these bottom 2, that's age greater than 55. And this very top one, that's the pain at injection site. And this first line is that BNT162B2. That is if you actually got the vaccine. This is the Pfizer vaccine. The second thing right next to it is if you got the placebo. In each of these, the top one is the first dose. The second one is the second dose. In the 16 to 55-year-olds, if you received the vaccine, 83% had some pain at the injection site for the first injection. Only 78% with the second injection. 14% of the placebo recipients had pain at the injection site. Now, if you look down here at the older group, 71% had pain at the injection site with the first injection, and 66% had pain at the injection site with the second injection. Then let's go over here to fatigue. In the younger group, 47% of people had fatigue with the first injection. Now, if you look right next to that and look at the placebo, 33% had fatigue. What does that tell you about where we are right now? That tells you that our younger people are very fatigued. If you look at the second injection, 59% had fatigue, only 23% of the placebo. If you look at our older adults, 34% had fatigue with their first injection, 51% had fatigue with their second injection. And if you look over at headache, another common side effect, 42% had headache with their first injection, although 34% of the placebo had headache. 52% of the younger group had headache with their second injection, and 24% of the placebo in that group. If you look at the older age group, 25% had headache with their first injection, and 39% had headache with their second injection. So headache and fatigue are fairly common, but it's also fairly common in our placebo. The other thing that that we see some of is chills and then muscle pain. And if you notice one thing, the side effects do go up with the second injection. And that's because you've primed your body. You've gotten your body ready to fight the infection. And so that first shot got your immune system activated a little bit. The second one really gets your immune system activated. One of the most concerning adverse events was Bell's palsy. And in the vaccine group, we did see 4 cases of Bell's palsy, and that's when you develop a facial droop. It is sometimes permanent, but often not permanent. Now, this is kind of interesting. 8 patients in the vaccine group developed appendicitis, and 4 in the placebo group. Do I think this vaccine causes appendicitis? Absolutely not. I think that's probably just chance. 64 people in the vaccine group had lymphadenopathy and 6, so lymph node swelling, and 6 in the placebo group. And there were 6 deaths in the study. Now, there were 2 deaths in the vaccine group and 4 in the placebo group. So there were twice as many deaths in the placebo group than in the vaccine group. And there were no other notable adverse effects, no neurologic effects, no inflammatory effects, no thrombotic events that were at all linked to the vaccine. One of the big issues is, does this vaccine prevent asymptomatic infection and transmission? If I got the vaccine, can I still get COVID? We don't know. Can I be an asymptomatic person who transmits it to others? We don't know. And so Pfizer is studying this over the next couple months. So if you've been exposed, can you get vaccinated during quarantine? No, because they don't want you to expose the workers. So they do not want you to get vaccinated while you're quarantined. In autoimmune diseases, have they seen any sign of autoimmune disease flare? No, they think the benefits of this much outweigh the risks. In immunocompromised or transplant or cancer patients, they also feel like the benefits outweigh the risks. There's been no evidence of any adverse effects. So when do you get your second shot? If you miss the 21-day window, do you start over? Do you have to do the series over again? No, you just get the second shot as close to that time period as possible. What we're trying to do is make sure that people who had the Pfizer vaccine continue with the Pfizer vaccine. People who had the Moderna vaccine continue with the Moderna vaccine. If you have had COVID-19, when can you be vaccinated? And that is after 90 days. I will tell you that the people I know who have had COVID and then have gotten vaccinated, so they had COVID in the spring and got vaccinated in December or early January, they are having more severe immune responses. And that's what these side effects are. They're your immune showing that it's fighting the vaccine. Just maybe pick a day when you don't have a whole lot planned, or a weekend when you don't have a whole lot planned before you get the vaccine. So I've had the vaccine. Can I stop wearing a mask now? Unfortunately, no. No vaccine is 100% effective, and it takes time for immunity to build. I did have a partner who got COVID almost a week after he had his first vaccine. We really still have to be very careful. We also don't know, of course, if you can get COVID, be asymptomatic, and pass it on to others. Also, we're in flu season, and the combination of the flu and COVID is deadly, even in healthy young people. Luckily, we stop both the same way, by wearing masks. Wearing masks, in addition, is a sign of love. It's a sign that you love and you respect your neighbor and you want to protect them. And isn't that what we're called to do as Christians, to love our neighbor as ourselves? I appreciate you listening if you made it through this whole way, and I hope you stay safe. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you. Oh, wait, I want to show you my card. This is my most recent, most prized possession. So when you get your vaccine, you will get a card, and I suspect in the near future, this card will be required for travel to foreign countries, etc. So I photocopied this. I've stuck it in my safe. It's worth something. Thanks so much. Have a good night.